Why don't we start out talking about what's happening on Capitol Hill right now? Big talks about how much we can be spending and how much we can be taxing to pay for some of that. Where do you come down? What do you think is likely to happen, and what do you think about that?
Well, a trillion here, a trillion there, and pretty soon you're talking big money. If you add together the price tag on the American Rescue Plan, the jobs plan and the families plan, we're getting close to $6 trillion, though it's obviously spread over multiple years. It would certainly not be plausible for an administration to spend all this money and not raise taxes. But, you know, this is a complex process. And although many parallels are being suggested by the president's advisors with presidents in the past, like Franklin Roosevelt or Lyndon Johnson, who had very ambitious domestic programs. The majorities they had in Congress were a great deal larger than the Biden administration has. So there's going to be a pretty complex political process. And I can't tell you, nor I think can anyone else, how this legislation will finally look when it's signed into law. There are going to be some pretty ferocious battles, not only over what taxes get hiked, but also, you know, the legislative process itself, how it gets done through reconciliation. And the thing is going to be pretty protracted and pretty difficult, because those swing senators in the middle, the Joe Manchins, are going to wield a lot of power in this process. So I don't think it's prudent to draw comparisons with LBJ, who had massive margins of superiority in Congress when he was president.
That's one of the things I've been trying to figure out, too, just the idea that it's such a slim margin, not only in the Senate, but also in the House. And that might make the difference. I mean, you might be able to, I don't want to say buy off these senators and these congressmen, but you can put them in a position of giving them the things that are most important to them. And maybe that's a swaying issue. Maybe it's not. Maybe you come down and they have an incredible amount of power, bargaining power, with how they kind of shape the final outcome. I think that's what the street's counting on right now. Investors are thinking that the numbers they're hearing right now about how far capital gains taxes are going to go up, how much other taxes are going to be increased, they're thinking that that's the high end and that there will be some middle ground. I'm not entirely sure that's the case, though.
Right. And one can't actually have much certainty about this. I mean, the AFP, the American Families Plan, includes increasing the top income tax rate, doubling capital gains tax, repealing step-up basis, ending carried interest, expanding the estate tax above certain thresholds. I mean, these have very big implications, especially for the high earners, your Wall Street folks. So I think at the moment there's a sense that Wall Street's kind of not paying too much attention on the assumption that not much of this will get done. But I think quite a bit of it will get done, in fact. And considering the scale of the expenditure, it's inconceivable that there isn't going to be a pretty significant increase in taxes on the wealthy. I don't think the corporate tax rate goes all the way up, but it's certainly going up.
In your new book, Doom, I want to make sure we talk about that, too, because it's really interesting. You've got some great ideas in it. You think the big cities are not over. What gives you that confidence?
Well, as you can tell from my funny accent, I'm from Britain, and it takes a lot to kill a big city. Look at London. London was ravaged by plague, by the Black Death, and subsequent outbreaks of bubonic plague, starting from the 1340s all the way to the 1660s. It was bombed by the German Luftwaffe repeatedly in World War II, and it still bounced back to be one of the world's great financial centers. New York has never been subjected to so many beatings, but as I show in Doom, New York had a terrible public health problems in the 19th century, recurrent outbreaks of cholera, for example. And yet, the city bounced back. It bounced back from a terrible period of crime that ran from the 70s through to the 1990s. So it's hard to kill a city because there are so many big benefits to being in these clustered metropoles, particularly for financial services. But I think it's not going to be quite the same as it was pre-pandemic, because working from home has now become very well established in a way that's unique. We never could work from home before. Now we have something like a third of all jobs that can be done just as well from home. And Nick Bloom, my colleague at Stanford, has some pretty impressive stats that suggest there's going to be a kind of permanent shift for a whole lot of professionals to working at least part of the week from home. So I sense that it's not going to be quite the old Manhattan, even after we sense that the pandemic is over, or at least has receded like influenza into something that's seasonal, not a permanent problem.
Shepard Smith here. Thanks for watching CNBC on YouTube.